Morning, gentlemen.
How's it all going?
Yes, guys, a question about your physical attributes about the film. You guys had any kind of technical work as far as military people, special ops guys, technical advisors, or anything of that nature? It's military guys, so I was wondering.
Oh yeah, we did. We worked with these great trainers and technical advisors. We shot live weapons, and we tried to learn how to emulate them as best we could, and hung out with them, and stayed with us on the movie.
Yeah, four SEAL team guys and one Delta Force operator. The Delta Force, I mean, they were all extraordinary. The Delta Force guy kind of blew my mind. Just at his proficiency across the board. I mean, such a diverse skill set. Really intelligent, obviously incredibly disciplined guys, but it was amazing. I was sort of shocked by how much trust they put in us very, very quickly. They allowed us all to, be on the range with live fire and doing increasingly more complex maneuvers and stuff like that with live fire, particularly the first day that I was there, which I had all these guys to myself. We ended up doing, simulating like ambush scenarios and shooting, through windows, through like panes of glass, and doing cover fire and, operating movements and stuff, which I'd never done any of that stuff. And
stuntmen?
Oh, there were stuntmen, but okay. The idea was to have us do as much as we could.
Okay.
Building on his question, this movie lives or dies by the fact that you guys are a bond, you guys are a team, you have to depend on each other. For you as actors, did that come through the training, or did that come through on set, playing those roles?
Yeah, I think it just came from spending time together, and we all, it's a bunch of actors that I really like and respect. Has made it really easy for me, and I think we all sort of knew that the movie would fall apart without some sense of history between these people. So I think everybody kind of was invested in that.
This film has been around as the film that will never die. So what was the attraction for you guys to say yes on this?
Working with JC, who I think we all came into this with sort of prior admiration for his work, and and it's a very, very good script. It's a great opportunity to put together a really exciting ensemble. There were 5 equally good, well, not, I wouldn't say equally, there's 2 very, very good parts and then 3 quite good parts. But we all have our moments to shine, and I had been a big fan of his work on Margin Call, and seeing the way in which he handled an ensemble cast and really gave each character, their individual moments to shine. So I felt sure that, that we would all, be utilized and given our moment in the sun.
Yeah, same thing for me. It was really, director based, and the material, and given those 2 things, it was this really strong cast was kind of icing on the cake.
How did you tap into the morality? Could you understand their motivations, and was it more the money that drove them, or the?
I think it was complicated because it was a lot of things. It was like a lot of competing motivations. Obviously, a big deal is greed and money and that temptation, but there are a lot of pressures that are being exerted on this kind of group of friends in a lot of different ways, and that's what made it fun, I think, as an actor for me.
Unlike other heist movies, what made this one fun is I definitely enjoyed the whole the angle in the jungle, and then over the Andes and all, and shooting in these different types of locations. Like, which one was like the toughest? The one in the jungle, the mountains over California, Colombia also, which
There's this narrative that seems to have developed recently in the filmmaking community to try to convey how difficult it is to make films. Like, I feel like this started really acutely with The Revenant and seems to have just continued, where I keep hearing this narrative be perpetuated over and over again about how intrepid and difficult it is to shoot these movies. I mean, it's all utter bullshit. There's a whole army of people making sure that it's as safe and easy for us as possible, months in advance. And so of the many challenges of making film, of which there are many, it's really the creatively is the challenge. Physically, it's like there's never really any challenge, right? I've never been on a film where I felt challenged in the least, and so I think I understand this sort of this narrative that seems to have developed. But you know, enough is enough. I'm calling bullshit on it.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, it's obviously, you know, difficulty is what you're conveying, but it's beautiful. I mean, Colombia, Hawaii, those places you guys shot. I mean, what was the first location you guys went to? What was it like bonding at the location and going to Colombia? And tell me about
Well,
the
I think our first deep bonding experience was fairly well documented by paparazzi, which
there
involved
you
us all roaming around the
Classic.
beach in our speedos, and Garrett and I
The little wrestling.
wrestling.
These guys just got kind of lubed up and wanted to wrestle a little
Yeah,
bit.
you know.
And so they rolled around in the sand,
Thing-
which,
you know,
thank
what-
God we got a record of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought what happened in Hawaii stayed in Hawaii,
Yeah, there
but
you go.
obviously not.
Definitely not.
That's awesome.
I did want to say something to you before, which I felt like the two of the really interesting aspects that JC was dealing with in this narrative was that something that I had been thinking about a lot, because I had just prior to reading the script read Sebastian Junger's Tribe, and he puts forward a really interesting theory that as difficult to deal with coming out of post-military life as the trauma, you know, and the sort of blanket post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, that sort of is this like one-all explanation of the difficulty of reintegration into modern life, really doesn't do justice to the difficulty that people face of being removed from a very, very deep and specific purpose and belonging to a community that's, you know, hierarchical and specific, and everybody plays an important role, and there's a deep sense of interreliance. And I think that those things are enormously important. And in the same author, Sebastian Junger, actually made a couple of really interesting films called Restrepo and Coringal, where you sort of see this play out, and in a very, very, very diluted form. I could relate to that in that I've dedicated my life to making films, and I feel most valuable and vital and alive when I'm engaged in the process. And then the reintegration of coming home, where there's this hole, because there's this nourishing, exciting, vital experience that's been the center of my, you know, of my all of my you know, mental capacity and emotional capacity is finished, and I come back and life has moved on, and so reintegration is always very, very difficult. And I thought that was one of the really interesting things. It's like, what do you do when you're still in the prime of your life, when your primary skill set is no longer deemed valuable, you know? And like, that's, for me, like, these guys are just, you know, at a loss as to what to do. And the money was sort of a secondary importance. It was about getting the band back together and going and putting our machinery back to work.
Piggybacking on that, what does this movie do to you say about like veterans and heroes and stuff, and your thoughts on veterans seeing this movie?
Well, I mean, I think principally, like as Charlie said, it just wants to do justice to that very process and its difficulty. And if we paint a picture that's accurate, you know, people have a greater understanding of what it means to live this life very intensely, and then sort of have to go from fifth gear to first gear pretty abruptly. And just, you know, I think one of the things that people want is just like, they want to be seen. You know what I mean? They want to be acknowledged, seen, respected. You know, and I guess they want, you know, fairness. And I think, you know, what that demands that we appreciate and respect what people in the military, in particular, people in special forces branches who are just endlessly and repetitively going, you know, redeploying and going into combat.
Having those operators on set, have you guys raise your physical game? Obviously, you're not actually carrying rucksacks for, you know, miles and miles and miles, but did you guys do some sort of training to prep for this, that, you know, convey the physical aspects of those guys and how they move about?
We did, but again, that's a secondary challenge as much as compared to the primary challenge of being faced with these guys that just have a sensibility about them that is ingrained from being under sand and fire for 20 years, a seriousness and an earnestness and an absolute certainty of action that I don't have, you know. So that was more the challenge. Like, listen, I'll do the pull-ups and get my pecs looking good and all of that, no problem. But, you know, channeling that severity of character,
Yeah.
it was the way bigger challenge.
Yeah, you guys
What
moved
do
through those rooms great.
What do you think are the basic elements that turn a crime thriller into a classic? And what are some films that you think would pair well with this, like Cheese and Wine? This is a very intense film. So what would pair well?
If you're going to do like a double bill, let's go with Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that goes without saying.
There's
but
no wrong answer.
What was the first question?
The basic elements that turn a crime
make a
thriller into a
crime-
classic.
Well, that's hard to say. Classic, I don't. You know, it's one of those things where whether time kind of whether it holds up over time. There are so many great heist movies. You know, from the recent Ocean's 11 to the first Ocean's 11, and all the movies in between. You know, I've fooled around with that genre a little bit myself as a director, and you know, it's you know, I think one of the things that I try to do that JC just does so well is he gets you to at some point kind of root for the characters to pull off this heist, even though, you know, on reflection it's sort of morally dubious, you know.
You guys were mentioning something about the heist movie. I when I was looking at this film, you mentioned about PTSD, because that's that I know what you're talking about. And I'm saying to myself, okay, these guys are always on a mission, on a mission, on a mission. When the original plot storyline came out years ago, did JC change anything in regards to put more focus on the layer of the mission being the main objective, or PTSD, as you were mentioning, of these guys always having to function as one?
I'm not sure exactly what he changed, you know.
No, I don't know either. I read a couple of different later versions of the script. I know that it had a long history before I was involved in it. So I believe there were some rather grand incarnational changes to it over the years, but I know you'd have to ask JC. I'm not 100% sure what they were.
When you read the script, did you know the character you were going to play, or did you have an idea which one you wanted to play?
I got sent the script specifically to look at the character that I played, yeah. I think the other three characters, Ben and Oscar's roles had been cast, and so I was sent that. And I know at the same time, my friend Garrett, who played Benny, who I've been dear friends with for 15 years, I knew we were both reading it. And at that point, one of the changes was that Pope and Red Fly used to be brothers. And at that point, they were still talking about the potential of that. And so JC had felt that it would be distracting to have Garrett and I, you know, sharing the screen and have no familial bond because we just have a similar sensibility and look. And then they decided to not make Pope and make us brothers instead. So that was fun because Garrett and I have been wanting to act together, and you know, we've spent so much time over the last 15 years together and constantly being asked if we're brothers. It sort of created this sense of inevitability that when we did finally work together, it would be that in that capacity, and indeed that's what ended up happening.
Last question.
Question for Ben. I swear I'm not going to spoil the movie, but I wanted to ask you if you think your character knew that this was going to be a one-way trip for him secretly. Do you think he did this because he just wanted a release, so to speak?
I think he got to a place where, you know, he didn't approach the prospect of his own death quite in the same way that he had maybe, you know. I think it was certainly like a kind of resignation on some level, but I think he wanted to come home, wanted to see his daughter, wanted to, you know, help his ex-wife, wanted to live.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Nice talking to you all.
Thank you.